back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about a topic that I felt was very relevant to probably a lot of my audience viewers and something that I myself have gone through personally and struggled with. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking about how to get an internship. So I know for a lot of people, getting an internship seems like a really daunting task and something that's really scary. So today I'm going to be talking about 10 steps that you essentially need to follow to help you to get an internship. So if you guys would like to know what the process is of getting an internship, then please keep on watching. Step 1 is to start early. I can't stress this enough. It is so important to start early because the last thing that you want to be doing is scrambling and really trying to figure out what you're going to be doing during the summer when the school year is literally about to end. Yeah, the last thing that you want to do is procrastinate on something like this because this is so important, and I think actually might even take priority over school. It's just important to start early because everyone else is going to be competing for the same spots and there are only a certain number of spots available, so it's really important for you to start early so you can at least get ahead of the game. Typically, fall time is when big companies have their internship programs and their internship applications out. So depending on whatever track you want to go to, whether you want an internship for business, chemistry, computer science, physics, biology, etc., you should really figure out what kind of company that you want to work for, and if you want to work for a larger company, then make sure that you apply in the fall. And springtime is more when startups have their internships available. So typically springtime is for smaller companies, fall time is for larger companies. Number 2, have a resume. This is especially important because this is what you are going to be showing to the recruiters or the people in the companies that are looking to find their next intern. This is their first impression of you, which is your resume. For your resume, you want to make sure you tailor it to the job that you're applying for. For example, if you're applying to a research position that has to do with biology or maybe chemistry, you don't want on your application things like, oh, I was a dance champion. You don't want things like, oh, I participate in this homeless shelter and I've given back like a lot. Like those things are all great, but oftentimes your resume needs to be succinct and it needs to have the most important information on there. So a lot of these other things that you might have as extracurriculars could be fluff that can fill up your resume, but it doesn't actually add anything to your resume and it doesn't show why you are a better candidate. I think it's really important for you to put, normally resumes, first of all, they should be only 1 page long. Anything longer than that, no one really wants to read through it, so it should just be 1 page long. You really want to make sure that you have your most impressive accomplishments that relate to whatever job you want to get. So let's say you want a computer science internship or a software engineering internship. You want to make sure that your top achievements have to do with maybe school projects or like research you've done or things that you've created or whatever classes you've taken, and those are all things that are relevant to software engineering. You don't want to put things like, oh, I was in this other club. Like that has nothing to do with the job that you are seeking. So make sure that the things that are on your resume are very relevant. Number 3, polish your LinkedIn. So I'm not sure how many people look online when they are going through candidates, but I know that companies do look at your social media. And I think LinkedIn, which is a professional network, it's like a professional version of Facebook for those of you who don't know. LinkedIn is very important for you to polish. You should have a good professional photo. I actually don't have that yet, but I need to get along with doing that. You also want to make sure that you have all of your most up-to-date clubs, classes that you've taken, whatever accomplishments you've done. If you've built anything, if you've done other internships before, if you've done research before, anything, put that on your LinkedIn. And I think it's very important to update your LinkedIn because if you are, for example, a freshman in college, it's okay to have things from high school, but as you progress through college, you really want to make sure that all your things in high school are kind of gone from your LinkedIn because it's kind of irrelevant. In high school, you don't do much to prepare yourself for the internship and the real career world. That's more so what you do during college. So I would say by the time it's your sophomore year, you really shouldn't have anything from high school on your resume or on your LinkedIn because no one really cares. And it's like a lot of the times what you've done in high school is very intermediate level, and only when you start doing things in college is when those things are more relevant to the workforce and more relevant to the depth of knowledge that you might experience in your potential internship, which is why putting your most recent work on your LinkedIn is very important, and it is also really important to make sure that everything on your LinkedIn is formatted nicely, it's up to date. I think, I'm not sure how important it is to have people endorse your skill. Personally, I haven't gone around asking people to do that, so I guess it's not that important, but of course it's nice to have it. Whatever way you can help boost your LinkedIn social media presence, I think is really good and really important. Number 4, figure out what kind of companies that you want to apply to. And I say this because you don't want to apply to things without even knowing what you're applying to. I think you should in general have an idea of what you're open to. I understand that when you're first starting out as like a freshman or a sophomore and you're applying for an internship, maybe you are open to like all different sized companies. You know, you are okay with startups, you're okay with small size companies, mid-sized companies, or corporate enterprises. You're okay with all of those. And that is okay, and that is fine. But I think that as you apply for more and more internships, as you progress through the years, you should really hone down on what size and what kind of company that you want to work for. Number 5, figure out location. So for a lot of people, you know, myself included, I would never want to work anywhere in the middle of the United States, for example. I either want to be on the far west coast or I either want to be on the far east coast. And even if it's on the far east coast, I'm not too keen on working somewhere like North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Connecticut, New Hampshire. Like, I'm not too keen on working in those states, and nothing in the middle of the US, nothing against those places. It's just that it's too far from what I've grown up with. And yes, while it is a good idea to get out of your comfort zone, I don't want to be so far out of my comfort zone that I feel uncomfortable and I'm not happy with where I am over the summer. So I think making sure that you apply to internships that are in locations where you would want to go is also really important. Like, don't apply for overseas internships. Like, there are internships where they are located in Europe or in Asia, and if you get those offers, you're gonna have to go there. Do you really want to go there? See, that's really important. You want to make sure that where you're applying to is somewhere where you would actually want to work. And for me, I was applying to a lot of software engineering internship jobs, and so because I was applying for software engineering internships, a lot of those just happened to be in New York or the Bay Area, very few in LA, and there were some in Seattle. So those are pretty much where my options are limited, and that works for me because those are areas that I've enjoyed, that I would like to be in. And so this summer, I'm in New York, and probably the only summer that I hope to be here. Next summer, I hope to be back in the Bay Area because me and humid weather just do not go together. I can barely tolerate humid weather. I complain about it a lot. I need to run to wherever there's AC. Like, yeah, I really just can't deal with this weather. California is just home, and it's just more my type of weather. So yeah, so hopefully next summer I'll be in the Bay Area, but I wanted to try New York for the first time, obviously, because I've never lived here for a while, and yeah, just thought it was a good experience. So yeah, make sure that location of where you choose your internships is also really important. Number 6, where to apply for internships. So for me, I found it very helpful to apply on websites such as LinkedIn or Handshake. I found it very helpful for me to apply on websites such as LinkedIn or Handshake or AngelList. AngelList is more so for startups. LinkedIn and Handshake have both, I believe, but they also have larger companies. And of course, if they're really big companies, you can always apply on those websites. If it's like Google, for example, for like Google, it's like google.com/careers or something like that. A lot of websites often have that /careers URL in which they show job opportunities that they currently have. Of course, you have to sift through them and probably search for like internship positions so that you could actually look for the ones that are just for summer, and make sure you look at the requirements. Some of them are like, oh, you have to be a junior, you have to be an incoming senior essentially, or some of them are like you have to be incoming junior, or some of them you have to have a certain GPA, etc. They all have different requirements. So those are the 3 websites that I really recommend applying to, of course on top of, you know, whatever company, larger company and their careers. But for the most part, I would say LinkedIn, Handshake, and AngelList. Those are good websites where you can just collectively find a whole bunch of companies' postings on there. Number 7, mass apply. And I think that this is really important because especially if you are coming in with no experience, like if you are a freshman or you are a sophomore, you don't have that much experience. Sometimes you can't say, oh, I've done this previous internship before, you know. All you have are things that you've learned in class, and like class projects, class labs, whatever. And so you don't have that much experience. So that's why I'm saying it's important to mass apply. I personally procrastinated, and I only applied to, I think, around 30. And a lot of people apply differently. For some who are very confident in themselves and have like a lot of experience, have really high GPAs, know that they will get hired, maybe apply for like, I don't know, like 20 to 30. Not saying that I was that. I was very late, which is why I didn't apply to so many. Many opportunities were gone, obviously. But I think some people might apply for 20 to 30. And I also know people who've applied 300 to 400 places. So definitely mass apply. It does not hurt at all to apply everywhere. And I think applying everywhere, of course, it's like free to submit your resume. And so I really think that it's important to just spread yourself everywhere, of course, considering location and company size and all those things as well. But applying everywhere really doesn't hurt. Number 8, cold messaging. So this is a technique that I personally have not done, but I know other interns who have done this method and have gotten internships, and they are where they are now because they have cold messaged people. So what does this mean? So one of my friends actually, they knew like what kind of job they wanted. So they knew they wanted, for example, they knew they wanted an engineering internship. Okay, so my fellow intern actually, he wanted an internship at WeWork, and so what he did was he went on LinkedIn, typed in WeWork software engineer, something along those lines, found a bunch of people and messaged them. Just directly messaged them on LinkedIn saying, hey, I'm really interested in blah, 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 this is my resume, like, do you know if you can refer me to someone who can interview me, or do you know, can you refer me to someone so that I can apply for any internships, or do you know any internships that are available that are relevant to what I'm looking for, etc., etc. And sometimes these people will respond to you and they will say, oh, I am unfortunately on my team, I'm not accepting people, but I know this team, they are. So then they might send you a link, or they might send you another connection in which you will go talk to them. And through these kinds of connections, you can often land internships, and you can often, they'll sometimes directly just say, hey, let's just set up an interview, you get the interview, you pass, and then you got the internship. Sometimes it is that simple, and it's about finding those right connections. And even though you reach out to people who might not have availability for that particular internship, they might refer you to other people who are looking for interns, and you might just fit the bill. So that's why I'm saying, again, the first thing they're gonna ask you is, what's your resume? Again, resume is the most important thing. It is their first impression of you, and it is so important for you to have a standout resume that makes them say, wow, like this person is pretty good, like let's interview them, let's try to see like what they're like. And oftentimes in interviews, not only is it a way to test your skill, but it is also a way to see what kind of person you are and your personality, and that kind of thing typically shines through in video interviews. And sometimes you have video interviews, you have call interviews, sometimes there are like written interviews. There's so many different kinds of interviews. Some different internship application processes have multiple different rounds. It's all varying, but again, most important thing is definitely have a bomb-ass resume. Number 9, what to expect. So I think a lot of people, myself included, when I got into this internship application process, initially I was quite discouraged because I applied to 20 to 30 places. Majority of them don't get back to you, okay? And it also depends on company size, of course. If you reach out to a really large company, they might have an automated process that says like, oh, we're not interested in you. So obviously they say it nicer, or something like, oh, our application spots are filled, or like, oh, at this time, like we don't need you, or like something along those lines. When they say that, that's, of course, that's very nice that they even let you know that they don't want you. Other companies just say nothing. They absolutely just ignore you. Sometimes they don't even see your resume, you just get discarded away. Sometimes the company slots have completely already filled, so they don't even consider you anymore. So there's a lot of varying reasons for why you might not get reached back to, but I think it is okay for you to get a low retention rate of people who reach back. Like personally for me, I applied to around 30, and I think around 9 to 10 companies reached back. Maybe, okay, less than 10. Less than 10 actually reached back saying, hey, we want to interview you. Because a lot of the times, like, you're competing amongst a lot of people. There are, of course, going to be people who are better than you. There are, of course, going to be people who are worse than you. That is just the truth. So don't be too hard on yourself if you don't get heard back from. And if you get an interview, that's great, okay? And during this time, while you're waiting for companies to respond back to you, I think it's really important to, practice your skills, hone your skills. If you know that you're gonna get a technical interview, prepare for the technical interview. Do practice problems, train with someone, work together with other people who are applying for similar jobs as you are and work together on problems, do mock interviews together. All those things, I think they're really important. While you're waiting for companies to get back to you, start preparing for the interview process should you get an interview. Yeah, so that's definitely something to know. Another thing is, depending on the kind of internship that you're getting, you may get interviews that are in person. They might fly you out to get an internship. You might go through several rounds of internships. You might go through just a behavioral interview in which they just ask questions about, what kind of person you are, what do you do for fun, those kind of things, just to gauge what kind of person you are and if you're going to be someone who's fun and they want to work with. No one wants to work with someone who's boring, obviously. So you might have those questions. And you might have those interviews. And you also might have interviews that just test your skill level. So they might ask you to solve some sort of problem, And of course, it's not going to be industry related because after all, you are just a college student. Like, they don't expect you to know the industry. That's something that happens after college or after you've had internships before. So they're probably going to test you on something that is related to school material that you might have learned in school. Something really basic, but difficult enough that it will test and it will give them a bearing of how much you know. Yeah, so those are things that I think that you should expect. Definitely keep in mind that a lot of the times companies will not get back to you, they will not reach out to you, you will not get an interview from all of them. And of course, depending on how good you are, you might not get an interview from any of them, or you might get an interview from half of them, or you might get an interview from 20% of them. It all varies, but definitely don't be too hard on yourself because these companies have a lot of applicants too. You're not the only one applying, so remember that. And last thing, number 10. So let's say after you've gone through all your interviews, you get an offer letter, okay? Oftentimes these companies, they will say, okay, here's your offer letter, you have 5 days to decide. Okay, and you have 5 days to decide, and oftentimes you can't break contracts. And of course, I know people who sign to this contract saying, yes, I will work for you over the summer, and they end up breaking the contract. I'm not sure if they get blacklisted from the company, that I'm not sure about, but they sign a contract saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna work for you over the summer. Then another company that they interviewed from got back to them and they say, hey, we want you. So then you might think, oh, but this company was better. But I'm already contracted, I'm already tied with a contract to this other company. I'm just gonna break that contract and go sign with this other company. I know people who have done that. I'm not saying it's the most morally ethical thing to do, but people do it, of course. What can you expect? People do it. Another thing is that you might be able to have leverage. Let's say some companies will give you 30 days or will give you 2 weeks to respond. And during those 2 weeks or 30 days, you get offer letters from other companies. And they say, oh, you only have 5 days for us. Oh, you only have a week for us. Well, what you can do sometimes is use those other companies and those other offer letters that you got as leverage. Or you can often make a deal with other companies saying, hey, I got other really competitive offers from these other companies. Can you give me a few more days to decide? And that is something that companies might think, oh wow, this girl's wanted a lot, we're going to make sure that she has more time to decide or whatever. Some companies might still be strict and they're saying, oh no, you can only have these days and we're not changing it. Don't be afraid to reach out to companies. Just because you're an intern does not mean that you don't have the power to ask for a little bit of, room to negotiate. I think negotiation is important. Don't let a company intimidate you into just submitting into everything that they do. Make sure you read the contracts. I can't stress that enough. It is really important. The fine print, whatever they say, I know it's so easy to just quickly sign things and say you agree to things. But then what happens if something happens and you're like, oh shit, but I didn't agree to this, but then they're like, yeah, you did. They pull up the contract and you signed it. So I think especially if you're applying for a job and you are agreeing to this contract, it is really important to read the fine print, head to toe. And yeah, so those are my 10 tips on how to get an internship. I hope this video is helpful for you guys. And let me know down below what other videos you guys would like me to make that are either college related, interview related, internship related, whatever you want. Yeah. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!
Falling in love really ain't for me. Pouring it up so I feel nice.